Okay, so we're going to talk about the second R in the WISER framework, and this is reverse engineering. This is where we teach you how to become your own parent coaches. Now, you may need coaching from us for a while, and that's totally normal and okay. When I first started meeting with Janet, we talked a lot, and I had a lot of coaching sessions from her, and I still have about one a month, and that helps me just stay on track and have somebody else to bounce my ideas off of. But we want you to be able to be more capable and confident on your own and empower you really to be able to look backwards at the week or at the day if it's been really hard and kind of see what's going on. Now, engineers are tasked with the job of trying to map out things to make them work as best as possible. And we had a construction project going on recently in our home, and those who had to plan it out had to look really carefully at all the details, and they built something that didn't quite work right, and so they had to look through their plans and their building to see what was off. And then they went to that piece that was off and they corrected it, and now the structure is great. So the same thing happens to us as parents. Building a family and raising a kid is way more complicated than building a house or doing construction or wiring a building and those kinds of engineering projects. And so it is normal if you get to the end of a day or even an interaction with your child or the end of a week and think something was not quite right here. What might be off? So we want to remind you that the WISER parenting framework, they're like pieces of a puzzle, and the puzzle makes sense if you have all of the pieces. And so if you have a situation with your child, you may look back at it and say, oh, was I off on my warmth and connection? How's that been going? Am I being really clear on my boundaries and being firm about them early on? And I want to emphasize that, being firm about them early on. Am I giving my child lots of control? Are they experiencing earned consequences, or am I swooping in to rescue? So we're going to break that down into smaller pieces and some questions that we would have you ask yourself. And in the handout, there are these specific questions, and we highly encourage you to print those out, to check in with yourself and self-evaluate frequently, especially at first when you're trying to learn these principles, and then periodically from here on out. Or like I said, if you have a day that's off, you can try this. So I wanted to give you an example from my own life. I had a situation with my daughter where she was wanting control and she was fighting us for control, and we handled the situation by engaging directly in a power struggle. It ended with a meltdown. I think somebody got bit, and there was a lot of relationship rupture in it, a lot of intense emotions, a lot of tears, a lot of consequences, and it didn't really go very well. So I called Janet and I talked to her to say, help me walk through this and see where I was off. So she asked first, are you doing the W? Is there a lot of warmth going on? Are you trying to receive, see, and validate your kids? Yes, I am. Do you offer warmth and empathy as they're trying to connect the dots? And do you do that same thing for yourself? And I was able to say, yes, I am doing all those things. She said, okay, were you good at identifying your boundaries? Have you created boundaries that help the kids start to connect the dots, and you're being firm about respect and how you're being treated and those kinds of things? Yeah, I feel like I'm doing that. And this is where I got off, and you may have gotten off on one of the other letters. So sharing control. Do I allow my kids to make choices so they can start to connect the dots in their own minds? And I said, yeah, I am letting her make choices. And she said, are you exhausting her with choices through the day? Are you giving her a lot of choices over a lot of things and making it clear that she has control? Because you guys were engaged in a power struggle, and a power struggle is a sign that your child is wanting more control over her life. And I had to stop and think and realized I was not giving her a lot of choices through the day. We had kind of gotten into a rhythm of just the natural routine of the day, and I wasn't really focused on giving her a lot of control. or giving her a lot of choices. Honestly, I was tired of having to give her a lot of choices, but then it just turned around and bit me. So so I realized I I am I'm not doing as well in this area as I could be. And so Janet encouraged us to really focus on giving her more choices and give them to her all throughout the day. Um, Now, you may be off in a situation in the E. I was off on the S, and you may be off on the E. Do you allow your kids to fully own the consequences of their choices, or are you still trying to take some of the ownership on you? And are your kids' actions currently a problem for them or for you? So, another example that I had is my kids leaving their towels out after they showered all the time and being so frustrated with that. And I could tell that something was off. And when I looked at the Wiser, I thought, you know what, I'm off on my E. That I don't have good earned consequences for that. My kids' actions are a problem for me right now. I'm bugged by the towels, I'm picking them up. I need to figure out a way to shift this onto them. And so that's an example of being off there. And then the next question, do you resist rescue? Are you trying to rescue your kids before they make a choice, or are you trying to protect them after they've made a choice? So when you are going through a difficult time or you're wanting to improve how you're parenting, look at each of these letters and see what dial needs to be turned, what piece is missing. And as you're doing this, we encourage you to be really compassionate with yourself and to see it as non-emotionally as possible. You are learning new skills. This takes time. We don't get mad at babies for learning how to crawl and failing while they're doing it. We encourage them to keep going. And that's how Janet and I feel, that you are all new at this. These are new skills. They feel really counterintuitive to us as parents, but in the end, they get great results. But you can only get there if you can be kind and compassionate to yourself while you're working towards that. I have to remind myself that even though I teach this, I am not going to be perfect at it. Janet has to remind herself. We have to help each other out and remind each other of the Wiser parenting principles as we parent our kids.